Federal authorities arrested Cowboys for Trump leader Couy Griffin last Sunday and branded him a threat to the community after he bragged at an Otero County Commission meeting that he was going to take a .357 Henry big boy rifle and another .357 handgun in his car to Washington. The FBI took notice, got an arrest warrant for Mr. Griffin. They put him in cuffs and in jail, saying his threats have to be taken seriously. That's news to Steve Pearce and Yvette Herrell, who have offered milquetoast criticisms of Mr. Griffin's previous violent rhetoric, but, especially in Ms. Herrell's case, welcomed the support of Cowboys for Trump, didn't she? They're backing away now, quietly. Sophie, purely as a political move, will this sort of soft rebuke save face with the far right of the party, or is the damage done for Ms. Herrell in 2022?
I think that remains to be seen. That's far enough away in people's memories.
In political terms, exactly. Right.
Yeah, it's going to matter what she does in the in between. I think that it's a dangerous situation for her, depending on what Griffin does. What happens with him going forward. But one of the things that I think is sort of remarkable, and there's been a fair amount of discussion about this online, is here's this guy who's gotten away with it. I think of another Griffin, Kathy Griffin, who got a visit from the Secret Service for holding up a dummied up, head of Donald Trump, sort of John the Baptist style. And she got a visit right away. And this guy's been getting away with it for a long time. And then suddenly it is serious. It is real. That must have been a real stunner for him. And I think also for other people who have been engaged in that kind of public rhetoric.
Hey, TJ, interestingly, when I think about KOB, you guys have had Steve Pearce on a ton, and rightfully so, as the local station here. Any sense of how conservatives see him in this whole situation so far? What's the feedback you're getting from your listeners and callers?
I've not gotten much feedback about Steve Pearce. Actually, quite frankly, I have not had him on for a while, so I guess that's on me. I'll tell you what, man, I think 2 Wednesdays ago, the entire tide has shifted. And to our point, we didn't see any further violence on Inauguration Day or at the statewide level. And I think that was in particular because of the violence 2 days ago, because I think it was so outrageous. Back to Couy Griffin. I mean, we've known what's going on with him for a long time. It's no surprise to anybody what he's been saying. His words have been tinged with violence or the implication of violence for a long time. I think it just took what happened again 2 Wednesdays ago for people to go, well, maybe he shouldn't have been saying these things, And Sophie, to your point, whether this is going to stick with Yvette Herrell, I'll tell you right now, I think the Dems are salivating right now at this and looking at this. Well, there is our campaign issue coming up in 2022. They're not going to let this go. I don't see how they could possibly let this go. It's just too big of an issue.
Steve, when you tally up the scorecard here for Mr. Griffin, I mean, we're talking about the only good Democrat is a dead Democrat. He gets kicked off an Indian reservation. Who's ever been kicked off an Indian reservation? I can't think of one person in my life, going back, telling black people to move back to Africa. This has been going on for like 4 months. I mean, we suffered an entire summer of this. I don't understand where the county commission might be coming from on this. Patience is one thing, but how long can they let this go on?
Well, in the terms of the Otero County Commission, the other 2 members, as we all know, have been saying that he should resign, and if not, they're going to support Hector Balderas and trying to have him removed.
Right.
I'm not sure what the law is about the removing. It may involve a jury trial and stuff, but it seemed like that. I don't know. I think he's law, and they're very conservative people. These aren't liberal cucks or anything.
Right.
These are true conservatives and true Trump conservatives who are sick of the guy, and they're the ones who work with him. So. I think his days are numbered there. I don't know how the court case is going to turn out or anything. I was shocked when I learned that Couy Griffin actually used to work for Disney World in Paris as a cowboy, a Disney cowboy. And
it's true.
My first reaction was maybe quit when they came out with the movie Pocahontas and he found out it wasn't about Elizabeth Warren.
Good one,
I-
Stu. Good one.
The guy's just amazing, and I think his time is up.
Yeah. Hey, Sophie, you mentioned, and Steve just mentioned it as well, the idea that, I'm sorry, Steve's last joke just kind of blipped me out of my head there, but
Fine.
it was so awesome. The idea that, one can be so controversial for so long and not have consequences. I think this is what people are looking for, is consequences. All right, it's one thing to be a now bootless cowboy arrested by the FBI, but I think, how about Mr. Balderas? Where was he 4 weeks ago? Yeah, he's got a stiff letter out there now saying you need to, rein it in or we're going to do something about it. But where was this 6 weeks ago from him?
Well, I mean, I think when we talk about consequences, there are so many different layers and levels of consequences, right? And part of that is because of the First Amendment and our country's ongoing commitment to the First Amendment. And so, this is a person who made statements that I think in an older context were distasteful, may have been, upsetting, but that didn't as clearly as immediately seem to rise to the level of the shouting fire in the crowded movie house, which is one of the standards that we talk about when we talk about the First Amendment. And so, why were there not consequences amongst the voters in which the voters in Otero County said, we're not interested in doing this anymore? I mean, that's certainly a very legitimate, not really involving the First Amendment kind of thing. Let's just vote the guy out. Why weren't there consequences in the media?
Did he win? Was he up for election in 2020?
I don't believe so, but he didn't just start.
Because in 2018, nobody knew who he was.
He didn't sprout, but he didn't sprout horns immediately, right? So, there's the consequence of the voters, there's the consequence in the community. There are whole levels. Why is he getting the attention? I'm part of me when I knew we were going to talk about him today was a little sad that we were going to give him more oxygen. Although we seem to be condemning him, which is, I'm okay with that. But there are limitations on what government can do because of the power and the importance of the First Amendment. And you sort of watch for okay, have we crossed the line? Do we think we've crossed the line? And it may be that when, this all shakes out, it could be that the courts find that he didn't cross the line, even though his statements are extraordinarily distasteful and many people that they were an incitement to violence. And we're going to have to see where the courts establish that line in his case.
That is I'm so appreciative of you bringing that up. There are free speech issues and First Amendment issues, no doubt, as we kind of guffaw here. I appreciate that. Hey, I want to go.
Don't apply just when we want them to.
That's right. Exactly right. Thank you. And that's, this is why we have attorneys like you to bring balance to the situation. I want to go around the horn here real quick. TJ, starting with you. Yep. Obviously, we've got fencing up around the roundhouse. No one's liking that, but we got to have it. We didn't have problems, but we do still have open carry in the roundhouse. And I don't think that's going anywhere, certainly. I'm not questioning that. But what's your sense of, and for all of you, what's your sense of how we've approached the potential problems with the roundhouse and how we're dealing with it?
Well, I think the response after, again, I keep bringing up 2 Wednesdays ago, was completely legitimate and a responsible thing to do. I mean, you have threats all over social media saying that we're going to, we're coming. What are you supposed to do? Of course, you have to do something like that. And again, I'm going to shift gears a little bit one more time, because to look at the broader picture here. I'm so upset with certain proponents of the media right now. I'm just spitting angry. That's how angry I am with some of these people for perpetuating some of the lies and the mistruths that have led up to what has happened and have caused us to have to put fencing around our roundhouse and our beloved sacred places of government based on lies, and lies were perpetuated from the top down, and then with certain elements of the media perpetuating and enabling the lies.
A beautiful
and
last
that's
note.
why we are. That's why we are where we are right now. I am incensed about this.
TJ Trout, Sophie Martin, Steve Terrell, I can't thank you guys enough. Thanks for everyone for reading up and offering your thoughts. My final thoughts in a minute.